Welcome, everyone. You're listening to the Vintage Noise Channel. Today, we are heading back to the early 1950s.
A really fascinating period in France.
It really was. The country was in full-on rebuilding mode. And that meant everything, every franc, every liter of fuel, it all counted.
Absolutely. The market demanded absolute efficiency, maximum utility, minimum fuss, and minimum cost.
Which is a tough environment for any car maker.
Especially one with American roots, trying to sell, well, big American ideas in a market that was all about being frugal.
And that brings us to the car we're looking at today. It's the perfect example of that struggle. It's the Ford A.
French for bee.
Exactly. Built for only 2 years, between
Yeah.
1952 and 1954. It is just such a paradox.
It really is. And our mission today is to unpack that, to figure out how Ford's French division, Ford F, used some truly ingenious engineering to basically hide a big Detroit V8 inside a low-tax French workhorse.
It sounds like a story of engineers trying to fix a business problem.
That's it exactly. A brilliant technical team trying to save a deeply flawed corporate strategy.
Okay, so let's start there, with that flaw. The parent car, the Ford Vedette. The whole problem seems to start the moment that car hits French soil.
It absolutely did. The Vedette was never even really meant for France.
Yeah.
It started life in the U.S. as a post-war light car concept from Edsel Ford.
A light car.
Yeah, but when the bosses in Dearborn looked at it after the war, they got nervous. They thought, this could actually steal sales from our bigger, more profitable cars.
So they killed it.
They didn't kill it. They just packaged the whole thing up, the plans, the tooling, and shipped it over to Ford SAF in France.
So the French division inherits this big, unwanted American design and launches it in 1948. That seems like a total misunderstanding of the market.
Oh, it was a spectacular mismatch. I mean, the Vedette was a small Ford in America. In France, it was enormous.
Right. What were people actually driving in France back then?
Tiny cars. The Citroën 2CV, the Renault 4CV, the Peugeot 203. Small, efficient four-cylinder cars.
And here comes Ford with this big American sedan. The styling might have been trendy, but the running costs must have been terrifying for the average person.
That's the heart of it. And the real problem, the thing the Abeille couldn't escape, was what was under the hood. A 2.2-liter side-valve V8. The Aquan engine.
A V8 in 1948 France. That's just fiscally insane.
It was.
So why didn't they just put a four-cylinder in it? Surely Ford had one somewhere they could use.
That is the million-dollar question. And it really just boils down to tooling and sunk costs. The Boise plant was already set up to build that V8.
A different engine would have meant a massive investment.
A huge, costly retooling.
Yeah.
And they couldn't afford it. The plant was already struggling with some reliability issues on the early Vedettes, these defects of youth, which had already hurt their reputation. They were stuck with the V8.
Okay, so they have this V8 elephant in the showroom. Which brings us to the Abeille, the B. Launched in '52, this is their attempt to make it work.
Right. They realized the passenger car market was a lost cause.
Yeah.
But the utility sector, that was different.
Yeah.
It was booming because of Reconstruction, and it had certain tax advantages.
So they decided to turn this glamorous sedan into a tough workhorse. How'd they do it?
They basically stripped it to the bone. The Abeille was all about austerity. It got a new, specialized 5-bore hatchback body.
And the really important part was the back, right?
And tailgate.
Yeah.
It was a two-piece design. The bottom half folded down like a pickup truck, and the top windows swung up. Super practical. Very similar to the American Kaiser Traveler, actually.
And that was key for its commercial rating.
Absolutely. It was officially rated for a 500-kilogram payload. It's just over 1,100 pounds.
I'm guessing all the fancy trim from the Vedette was gone?
Oh, completely. All that American-style chrome was just ripped off and replaced with simple painted parts. The fancy grille from the Vedette,
Gone.
gone. Replaced with just a basic, cheap wire mesh. Even on the inside, the rearmost side windows were blanked out from the interior to prove it was a commercial vehicle.
It sounds like they did everything they could to make it look the part. But that still leaves the V8 problem, the tax man.
And this is where the story gets really good. This is the engineering brilliance, or maybe, like you said, desperation.
So how do you make a V8 not get taxed like a V8 under the Cheval fiscal system?
Okay, so the French tax system, the CV rating, it was a formula. It was based on bore, stroke, engine speed. The engineers couldn't change the engine block, the basic V8 architecture.
But they could change how it worked.
They could change how it breathed. They realized they could game the formula by basically choking the engine.
So they intentionally made it less powerful.
Exactly. They designed a very specific, very restrictive intake manifold and matched it with a unique carburetor. This was not about performance at all. It was purely about tax compliance.
So what did that do to the engine? What were the numbers?
Well, power dropped a lot, down to about 66 horsepower, which sounds low, but for a utility vehicle, it was fine. But it had these other effects that were actually great for a commercial user. Better fuel economy, for one, and it made the engine incredibly durable. Really boosted its longevity.
But the most important number was the tax rating.
That was a golden ticket.
Yeah.
This whole setup successfully dropped the tax rating down to a very competitive 12 CV.
12 over V8.
For a V8. They basically wrestled an American symbol of excess into a tax bracket that made sense for a French business owner. It was a huge technical achievement.
And they didn't stop there. I read they made one last big change right at the end.
Yeah, that shows you how much the engineers believed in it. For the 54 model year, the final year, they offered an option to remove the central B-post.
The pillar between the front and rear doors?
Right, so you could open both doors on one side and have this massive, wide-open space to load things. A huge step forward for a utility car.
So you have this clever, tax-friendly, practical V8 utility vehicle, but it only lasts 2 years. Why did it fail?
It was really death by 1,000 cuts. Competition, public perception, and in the end, Ford in Detroit just giving up.
Let's start with the competition. Who are they up against?
They were fighting an uphill battle against established French rivals.
Yeah.
Purpose-built, four-cylinder vans that were known for being cheap and unbreakable.
Like the Peugeot 203U.
The Peugeot was the benchmark. Is the best-selling light commercial vehicle in France in 1954. It had a tiny, frugal 1.3-liter engine. There was no way a V8 could compete on running costs, even with the tax break.
So even though the Abeille was rated at 12 CV, customers just saw V8 and thought expensive.
Exactly. The V8 stigma was impossible to shake, especially with the Vedette's early reliability issues still fresh in people's minds. And you had Simca's utility sales going through the roof at the same time, which proved the market was there. Just not for Ford.
So the engineering was brilliant, but it couldn't solve the marketing problem.
It couldn't. But the final nail in the coffin came from Dearborn. They sent over a troubleshooter, a guy named Francis Reith, to audit the French operation.
And the news wasn't good.
It was terrible.
Yeah.
He reported back that Ford SAF was a money pit, consistently losing money deep in the red.
And Detroit decided it wasn't worth it.
They made the call. They decided to divest, to liquidate the entire French manufacturing side of the business. Ford France would just become an importer for British and German Fords.
Wow. So in 1954, they just sell the whole thing, the plant, the cars, everything to Simca.
The entire operation. Lock, stock, and barrel. The Ford name just vanished from French car production overnight.
But that wasn't the end for the car itself. Simca clearly saw the value that Ford's management had missed.
They absolutely did. Simca immediately started making money off those assets. They took the passenger car, the Vedette, and successfully rebranded it as the Simca Vedette line, the Versailles, the Regence.
Then the Abeille concept, the V8 utility car.
They continued that too. It became the very popular Simca brake Marley station wagon. Simca managed to sell the exact same concept that Ford had failed with.
Which proves the basic design was sound. The V8, once they'd sorted it out, was actually a good, durable engine.
It was a great engine. In fact, it was so tough that Simca kept selling it for years for industrial uses.
Not in cars.
No, I mean powering things like electric generators, water pumps, and famously, the winches used to launch gliders. That V8, born in Detroit and forced into being frugal in France, became a real industrial workhorse.
And the factory, the Poissy plant where the Abeille was born.
That plant is a legend. After Simca, it went to Chrysler. Then in 1978, it became part of Peugeot. It's still a major Peugeot factory today, still building cars.
That is an incredible story. So the Ford Abeille was this piece of brilliant tactical engineering. Getting a 12 CV rating from a V8 is amazing, but it was just crushed by a terrible corporate strategy and a fierce local competition.
It's the classic case of a good product being killed by a bad plan. The Abeille's clever engineering was a solution to a problem that, really, Ford shouldn't have had in the first place.
So it leaves us with this thought, doesn't it? How often is a car's fate decided by corporate strategy, even when the car itself, like the Abeille's V8, or its clever utility design, is actually fundamentally sound?
It's a great question for you to think about. What other cars do you know of that were victims of bad timing or bad business decisions, rather than just being bad cars?
Something for you to chew on. Thanks for joining us today on Vintage Noise. We'll catch you on the next one.